How did the World Trade Organization come about and what reforms are planned? The series Look Back, Look Ahead answers these and other questions. On November 9th, the trade ministers of the 27 EU member states met in a video conference as part of the EU Council Presidency of Germany. One of the items on the agenda was the reform of the World Trade Organization, the WTO. The WTO is an international organization that has dealt with the regulation of global trade and economic relations since its foundation. It was founded as a successor organization to the General Agreement on Customs and Trade, the GATT or GATT, with expanded objectives, and has been an independent international organization based in Geneva since 1995. It currently comprises 164 member states, including the largest economic areas in the world, the European Union, China, the USA and Japan. Afghanistan became the youngest member to join in 2016. The fundamental principles of the WTO are based on decisions that were laid down in the GATT in 1947. After the Second World War, the so-called Western powers agreed that protectionism should be a thing of the past. After all, it was one of the causes of the economic upheaval at the beginning of the 1930s, when many states tried in vain to implement import bans, state aid and higher tariffs to strengthen their industries domestically. A global recession, mass unemployment and political unrest followed, which prepared the ground for World War II. The GATT should guarantee a lowering of tariffs between the trading partners for the benefit of all 23 founding states. New states were also gradually added, including Germany, which became a full member in 1951. The WTO, as the successor organization, aimed to make world trade legally secure, non-discriminatory and open, and to dismantle trade barriers. A WTO member may not discriminate against another WTO member in trade matters compared to other states or domestic providers. The WTO set of rules for world trade has been successfully expanded, for example, for new products. This development led to the WTO establishing itself as an organization for international trade. Its overriding purpose is still today to ensure transparency in trade relations, as well as to reduce and abolish tariffs and other trade barriers. The long-term goal is free international trade, which should strengthen the prosperity of the participating economies, ensure the economic development of all WTO members, and increase the level of real income and global demand. In line with these ambitious goals, the tasks of the WTO have also been expanded. Subsidies in agriculture, trade and services, or compliance with minimum standards for intellectual property are now among the areas of competence of the organization. In all of this, topics such as sustainability or development also play an increasingly important role. The multilateral trade order thus created has helped many national economies to achieve rapid growth and economic development over the past few decades. Even today, the World Trade Organization is essential to ensure open, fair and rule-based trade. Nevertheless, the changed global framework conditions also require reform at the WTO. Inflexible procedures and conflicting interests of the individual members are a burden on the organization, and in several areas there are not really sufficient rules. As I said, services is now part of it, but under WTO rules there is no guaranteed access for all your services if you're not a member of an FTA or whatever, and that is an important topic for all the Brexit discussions at the moment. In addition, there are protectionist tendencies and market distorting behavior, for example, through subsidies, which the WTO rules currently cannot adequately address. The role of the WTO as a supervisory authority is also threatened by a lack of transparency in some member states, especially those that are not organized in a market economy. A reform agenda for the organization is therefore an important concern of the European Union and the EU member states, for example, to create rules for digital trade and to restore the full functionality of dispute settlement in the WTO. Resolutions are made by consensus in the WTO. As a platform for resolving disputes between members, the dispute settlement body is one of the most important organs of the WTO, alongside the Ministerial Conference of Economics and Trade Ministers, which meets at least every 2 years, the General Council and the General Secretariat. During its EU Council Presidency and beyond, Germany is committed to resolutely promoting reforms in the WTO. The proposals relate to new regulations, primarily to close gaps in the regulatory framework to create comparable competitive conditions. create comparable competitive conditions. Say that 100 times. A European leadership role in strengthening the open and rule-based international trade order is also essential for dealing with the health and economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. The crisis has exposed the vulnerability of global supply chains, such as medical protective equipment. A strong WTO is an important basis for the expansion and diversification of legally secure and reliable trade and delivery relationships. In addition to strengthening the WTO as a regulatory framework for open and rule-based world trade, it will be important in the future to modernize the WTO rules and also the regulations and create new rules against trade and subsidy practices that distort competition. Many of the EU's achievements and regulations can only be understood by looking at their long history, and they take the informal councils and other events during the German EU Council Presidency as an opportunity to take a look back at the emergence of different policy areas in the European Union. And that's why I brought up the WTO again. And at the same time they asked, how can the EU develop further in this area or help develop an important organization develop further like the WTO. And if you now want to know more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you on the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!